and the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under it.
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown lesson.
Young TV. Last time we spoke, it was right after, well, actually, it was right after quarantine had been declared, and we had the Black Monday market crash. And I was talking about how the crash was 33 years from the Black Monday crash of 1987. And so I was talking about the symbolism and why we see the number 33 whenever there's some type of chaos. And so that's kind of where I wanted to pick up today, because right now we see a lot of things that I think might have more than one meaning or an occulted meaning. So I wanted to get your take on a couple of things that have developed. So,
That's
for example, what do you think about the significance of politicians kneeling with masks on? You know, is it really just a nod to Black Lives Matter, or do you think there's another meaning behind it?
No, I think there's probably another meaning behind it. And that meaning, I think, is probably Nazi. I think that what's going on in America is there is a Nazi movement to take over the world. Because if you remember back in the World War II, when it was over, the German army surrendered, but the Nazis did not surrender. They didn't surrender at all. And so they are still well healed and doing just fine. They're living right now in South America, in Argentina, and they're doing well all over the world. The Nazis are. So it was the German army that they gave up during the Second World War and signed an agreement to disarm. But the Nazis never signed anything. They haven't decided to do anything but what they were doing. And I think that what is going on right now are the Nazis that are living in Argentina are doing what they have always done. They've hated this country. They want to destroy it. And so I think that's what's happening to us right now.
Very interesting, because I've looked into a few Nazis who more or less seem to have left the Nazi Party and come to work for America. People like rocket scientist Ron. And I look at his relationship to people like Walt Disney and how Walt Disney helped Wernher von Braun's vision of outer space be communicated to the masses. So it seems like,
you're right.
What's with the Nazis getting involved with NASA?
Yeah, well, NASA is a Nazi organization to start with. NASA and NAZI to start with. because all the major scientists at NASA were Nazis that were brought here by the U.S. military and involved all of the Nazi operation, and they gave to the Nazis all the information and the money that they needed to do whatever they wanted to do. And so that's why our NASA is actually Nazi. It's run by Nazis.
Okay, so we have this reoccurring theme. Many conspiracy theorists look into this idea of Nazi exfiltration. I think it was called, was it Operation Paperclip or something? Where there was this move of Nazis with the aid of the Vatican into positions of influence within America. So are we looking at some covert control, or are they ever going to reveal it, or are you suggesting it's just like behind the scenes, maybe
It's a behind the scenes of the Knights of Malta. The Nazi movement is actually a Catholic order called the Knights of Malta. The Knights of Malta are, in fact, the Nazi party today. And we have to understand the Vatican is behind all of this. And that's why it has been said so often that all roads lead to Rome. And that's true. The narcotics traffic, human trafficking, organized crime, and keeping in mind that the Pope is today a Jesuit, and the Pope is called the Holy Father. Why? Because he speaks for God. He's a Godfather. And we need to keep that in mind, that the Pope is a Godfather in Rome. And that's why the nations around the world all go to Rome, so they can bow down on their knees and kiss his ring and let him know that they are in subjection to the Roman Godfather.
Okay, so Godfather, that term seems almost synonymous then with vicar, like vicar of Christ, which means that the Pope is a stand-in who is a figurehead, but he's considered to be a stand-in for God himself.
That's exactly correct, yes. He is a stand-in for God himself. That's why he's called a Godfather. He's a Holy Father because he speaks for God. And we have to understand there's a connection between organized crime in America and the Godfather in Rome. And the Godfather has infiltrated America from very beginning, and for a long time he's been involved with American politics.
Okay, now that's a good point there. The Pope, the papacy, it's always, in my view, been very political, but this one, the present Pope, Jesuit Pope, is definitely hardline environmentalist. He invented something called eco-sins, and he said that when we damage the environment, we're sinning against the creation. So the Pope is taking this politicized global warming and attaching it to the Catholic worldview of sin and God's response to it. And he's also, as he said, a Jesuit, which is also very significant. So for people who don't know, what is the background of the Jesuit order? Because that's something that's always being brought up behind the scenes, kind of like Masons, but I think we need to get more specific. What is a Jesuit? And
the Jesuit order is founded back in the 1500s by a man named Ignatius Loyola. Ignatius Loyola, or Loyola universities, or Jesuit universities. He was a very, very clever man, but what he was doing is he was setting forth a bulwark against the Renaissance, because there was a Renaissance in Europe that began to promote science and questioning authority. The Renaissance of Europe, of course, gave birth to America. And this is why today the Catholic Church is under question by so many people, because that's what they were. They were under they were under suspicion. And so the Jesuits were founded by Ignatius Loyola to fight off any anti-Catholic interference with the Pope at all. That's what the Jesuits do. They fight off any political or any organizational opposing the Pope. And so now we have a Jesuit Pope, and he is now, and the Nazis were always connected to the Communist Party. The Jesuits were part of the massive Jesuit Nazi Party, and so many of the leaders of the Nazi Party under Adolf Hitler talked about they were Jesuits. And the Jesuits were the people who were behind the Nazi movement. But there is also another group behind the Jesuits. It's called the Knights of Malta, the Maltese Knights of Malta. And that's another whole story that people do not know anything about, the Knights of Malta.
See, this is very important information because you're talking about the origin of the Jesuits as the Vatican's army.
Yeah, it's the Vatican's army. Correct. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
I've read their initiation oaths, and it's very similar to many other secret societies where they take an oath to preserve the order, and it's pretty ruthless. If you read their own, I guess,
right.
statement of loyalty and oath, but it's brutal. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I sure do. Yes, you're right. It is brutal, very brutal. But Rome was always brutal when it comes to other nations interfering with Caesar. Caesar wanted to have the whole world, not just Europe, but the entire world. And now Caesar has finally, now Caesar has control over the whole world because America is the new Roman Empire. And it was said in history that Caesar each morning would get up and he would go up on the hill, was the term that was used. Caesar was up on the hill. What hill? It was called Capitoline Hill in Rome. That was a seat of power for the Roman Empire. Well, we have a Capitoline Hill too, but in Anglo-Saxon it's just Capitol Hill. So we have a Capitol Hill here, and Caesar is over the congregation of Rome in America, and Washington, D.C. was known as Rome before it changed its name to Washington, D.C. And it's a very interesting history of the organization called the United States government. It's actually a Roman government. And then when you understand that for the first time, it will now make sense when the U.S. Senate, that's what the Romans had. They had a Senate, and the Senate was up on the hill. Well, we hear that every night on the news. Up on the hill, the Senate did this and that, or Caesar went up to talk to the Senate up on the hill. And so we are the new Roman Empire. And therefore, and when Caesar involved himself in the he left Europe. When Caesar's army left Europe, it went to Britannia, what we call Britain. And what was the center for power in Britain was called York, England. And so therefore we have a New York. And in New York, England is the center for the Roman Catholic Church's domination of the world. And it actually has to do with the Roman Senate up on the hill and the Vatican's control over our Roman Senate up on the hill. And it's just an extraordinary story of betrayal of the American people.
Okay, so
by the Vatican.
Catholic means universal.
It means universal. Yes.
That's a major key here. But there's something else. You mentioned Caesar, and everyone knows that Caesar wears that laurel wreath, which I keep seeing the same symbol on so many different flags, like the UN flag, for example.
That's right. That's exactly right. And on the point I was going to make was that the United States is the new Roman Empire. The Roman Empire moved out of Europe into Britannia, or Britain, and the city in which it was established as a city for Rome's control over Britain was York, England. And we have a New York, England. It's a New York. And therefore, in New York, we have something called the United Nations. The UN is the Caesar's dream of world conquest. And now Caesar has what he has always dreamed of, ultimately world domination under the United States as New York with the New World Order, which is the United Nations, which is a Roman idea. It's the whole idea of Rome was to rule the world, and now we have a United Nations that the whole world is subservient to. And it's in New York, the Empire State. What empire? New York is called the Empire State, but nobody asks what empire. Well, try the Roman Empire. That's who we are in America. We are the new Roman Empire.
Okay,
It's
so
an
speaking of
extraordinary
empire,
story.
all of what you're describing right now, which you've talked about this for years, but it's all, I think, become very self-evident in light of the quarantine, where we saw how much power they actually have, where they can send home. And
Yes.
in the Empire State, they lit up the Empire State Building, the top stories and the needle, so it looks like a big glowing needle, like
Obelisk?
a syringe.
Yeah, a syringe or an obelisk.
Precisely. And Empire State Building in a big syringe, which symbolizes that objective they have of tagging everybody, vaccinating everybody. Whatever's in the vaccine is kind of a side issue, I think. I think ultimately, though, they're displaying we rule the world, and everybody is kneeling or bowing or
Or
cowering.
kissing the ring of the Pope, of the
Mhm.
Holy Father, who speaks for God. He's a Godfather. The whole problem of America today rests on the Vatican. The Vatican actually is one of the very first corporations ever founded on the earth, and then it has a subsidiary corporation with the British Empire. And today, the United States is not the United States of America. And this is a very important point that people need to understand. The United States of America, that was founded back in the 1770s, 1780s, is no longer in existence. We're no longer living in the United States of America because there was a civil war in the 1860s. And so they killed the president, shot Lincoln and killed the president. And today we are now in a civil war. And this is what is going on. And this is why we are now going back into a civil war mode. Because the United States, it was decided by the people who ran this great country, the politicians decided back in 1868 that after the Civil War was over, what are you going to do with all the people? We don't have a United States of America anymore. It's not called the United States of America. It's called, as what was decided was that in 1868, they decided to form a corporation, incorporate the United States into a company. And so that's what we are today. We're no longer the United States of America, which means we're no longer Americans. We are U.S. citizens. By U.S., I mean a company, a corporation was incorporated in Delaware. It's a privately owned company called United States. And if you have a Social Security card, on the front of the Social Security card is your number in the corporation. That's a corporate number on the Social Security card. But on the back of the Social Security card is a series of numbers and letters on the bottom of the back of a Social Security card. That those colors originally for those numbers on the back of a Social Security card were in red because they represented your blood and in your body. And this is why today, if you call any of the big companies that keep track on the oh, what am I trying to say? It keeps track on the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And there are companies in New York that do nothing but keep track on the stock market, who owns what and how much is it worth. And if you contact one of those companies, which is on my website, I tell you how to do it and show you how to do it. You contact those companies and you tell them that you were working on your grandmother's home and you found an old stock certificate and you wanted to know if the stock certificate was really real. And they will ask you, well, give us the number of the stock certificate. Give us the number. And you give them the back of your Social Security card, your Social Security card. You give them that number. And they will come back and tell you, yes, that is still good. And it's owned by, and they'll give you your name. And then you ask them, well, how much is it worth? They'll tell you 6.9 million. So you are a stock on the New York Stock Exchange, and you're worth 6.9 million. And most people have never heard of such a thing. Most people have never heard of any of this.
Well, combined with the a seeming objective of vaccinating everybody, tracking everybody, contact tracing, which is something I want to bring up with you. It seems like we're looked at by the elite technocrats as livestock.
That's exactly right. That's precisely right.
Now,
so that's if you have a daughter and she's getting married, and if she's marrying a young man from a wealthy family, you say he is of good stock. And I'm saying, is she marrying a cow? No, he is of good stock, meaning his family are wealthy. So he's of good stock. And there's a very big reason for that. The corporation called United States is a privately owned, it's a municipal corporation, but it's privately owned. And that's why we as Americans are no longer Americans. We are U.S. citizens. And it has to do with the 14th Amendment. And as a U.S. citizen, you're no longer considered by the world to be an American. Therefore, only Americans have the rights and privileges of the United States of America. This is why when you go into court, why do you have to go into court? Because you don't have any freedoms. You have no freedoms. Why? Because you are no longer an American. You are a U.S. citizen. This is why if I see you coming out of a restaurant one night, and you've heard this before, if I see you coming out of a restaurant one night with a woman, I say to you the next day, you know, the woman you were out with last night, she's very bad company. You need to stay away from her. She's bad company. What do you mean company? And then you say, mind your own business. She's going to marry me and I'm going to have a partner. She's going to be my partner. So what are you talking about? Marriage? You're talking about partnership. You're talking about bad company. You're talking about company, business, and a partnership. You're talking about commerce. And if you look up the word commerce in a legal, lawful dictionary, look up the word commerce in a lawful dictionary, it will tell you commerce is sex. It's a business. Sex is a business. It may be a bad business or a difficult business, but if you're connecting to her as a corporation, it's a business, and that's why you have to have a marriage license.
Okay.
It's because you
commerce,
are entering
we
a business.
have like the god of commerce, Mercury,
Yep.
This god Mercury, like when we're talking about these world events, I can't help but notice that things seem to be timed astrologically according to the sun, and I find many allusions to different deities, classical deities. The god Mercury, I think, is represented today on the world stage in the
And
Joker
the
archetype.
dime, the American dime has Mercury's torch on it, the torch of Mercury.
Okay, Torch of Mercury. See, that's a key right there, because one of the interesting things I've seen with the archetype of Joker is that he burns the system down and Batman cleans it up.
Yep.
Order out of chaos. And so I've been saying consistently in the pop culture the use of this Joker character, and even in the big shootings and bombings where it's the Joker shooter or the bomber at Boston is called Joker, and afterward the SWAT team cleans up the mess and they all look like Batman. And so I see this stuff happening all the time. But you might find this interesting. We had this recent provocation, the death of George Floyd, in a very, very provocative manner. And it turns out a couple of things. One, Twin Cities. Two, it happens right after the sun entered Gemini. And three, he was referred to by a basketball player, Steve Jackson, as a twin. And he was passing on a forged check, the $20 bill. I'm sorry, he had a forged $20 bill. So what I see here in the subtext, though, what is the significance of him being called a twin, sun enters Gemini, Twin Cities, counterfeiting?
Yeah. All of this is very, very interesting, but it's only important to the Knights of Malta. The Knights of Malta are a secret Masonic order inside the Vatican, and they are the real progenitors of Nazism and what we call the Jesuit system. They are all part of the secret society operating to destroy America, and the people go along with it. The people of America are referred to by the Knights of Malta the same way that the leaders of the Communist Party, V.I. Lenin, referred to the people of Russia. They were called useful idiots. It means that communists could not take over Russia and become the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, without useful idiots. It needs to have all the people agree to become communists. And so they were called useful idiots because they're stupid for giving up their freedom for a communist society. But that's what we have done in America. We've given up our freedoms from our universal freedom society. Americans used to be called the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we're not free or brave anymore. We're just normal, useful idiots. We put on our masks because we're told to. We're told to stay home, don't get around other people, stay 6 foot away from other people, put your mask on, to shut your mouth, and we'll tell you what you need to know. We'll tell you what to think and what to do, what you can do, what you can't do. And so we're destroying your country, we're destroying your freedom, we're destroying everything that you have lived for and lived by, and it's called the World Communist Movement. The World Communist Movement is a social gospel of the Jesuits to overthrow the United States system. But you cannot have a new world order, which is on the back of a $1 bill. If you look at the back of the $1 bill, you'll see a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top. The all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid is not connected to the pyramid. The whole idea of that symbolism is that America, the whole world of mankind, is the pyramid, and that we are supposed to be working our way to the top to understand what's going on and to continue our education so that we can finally reach the top of the pyramid as a human race. And then underneath of the eye is the pyramid. So the idea is that if you reach the top of the pyramid in your lifetime, that means that you are one of the elites. And that I represents, in the Hebrew tradition, that I represents the Messiah. Most people don't know that, but the eye is the symbolism for the Messiah in Israel. And so the eye is also the symbol for Jesus in Christianity, the Messiah. The anointed one is referred to as the eye in the pyramid.
So
It's
does this explain then why so many celebrities can be viewed covering one eye?
Yes, that's because they are subjecting themselves to the messianic symbol for world domination, the one eye on the top of the pyramid, which is a symbol for the Messiah in Hebrew and a symbol for Jesus in the New Testament. Why? Because Christians call Jesus today, they misrepresent Jesus by saying he is the cornerstone of the church. No, he is not the cornerstone of the church. A cornerstone is on the bottom, but the eye and the triangle is at the top, the pinnacle. That's why the Bible says that Satan took Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple. Pinnacle means a point at the top. And so Jesus represents the pinnacle at the top. And that's what the symbol is on the dollar bill, the pinnacle at the top. It's an extraordinary story that needs to be told and understood by the whole human family. For the first time, it needs to be discussed publicly and what these symbols mean, because Jesus in the Bible is referred to as the chief cornerstone, not the cornerstone of the church. No, the cornerstone is the very bottom. It's the cornerstone at the bottom. But the Christians today say Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. That's wrong. That's not what the Bible says. It says he is the chief cornerstone, meaning that at the top it ties in all four sides of the pyramid instantly. If you have a perfect triangle, a perfect pyramid, you cut out the top of the pyramid. This is why the A is a pyramid with the I at the top cut off. This is why if you print out the letter A in our language, the letter A is a triangle with the top cut off. And so once you understand the symbolism of all of this, it all goes back to the Germanic people. The Germanic people, or Germany, has a very, very close connection to Judaism that most people do not know anything about and never heard anything about it. The Germans are referred to as the modern day Jews. And why? Because they are doing the work of the Messiah all over the world. The German people are nothing more than doing the work of the Messiah to destroy America and to bring about a new world order. But you can't have a new world order at all unless you get rid of the old world order. The old world order is America. Why? Because we're feeding and clothing and feeding and financing the whole world. We've been feeding the whole world for so many years. And back in 1945, we were feeding the whole world. And that's when John Kennedy came into power right afterwards, and he became the president of the United States. He was a Roman Catholic, but he said in his inaugural address, I'm accepting this position of president of the United States on my own, and I'll not be beholden to any organization or any religious view at all. I'm accepting this position as an American. Well, that's why they killed John Kennedy, because he would not go along with the destruction of the United States of America. He knew about it. He knew what we would call the United States Corporation He knew that in 1868 we were incorporated in Delaware as a privately owned company, and that today we are all today employees of a corporation called U.S. And U.S. citizen is what we are today. We're not called Americans because you don't have the freedoms of America. You don't have access to the Bill of Rights. You don't have access to the what do they call it? The Declaration of Independence. You don't have access to the Constitution. That's why when you go into a courtroom, they tell you don't bring up the word Constitution, because you don't have any access to the Constitution. You're not an American. You're a U.S. citizen. U.S. is a privately owned company.
Okay, so we are witnessing the after effects of this supposed pandemic, where they shut down businesses. And when I saw that happening, I immediately thought, this looks like a communist revolution.
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
But they're not actually like physically burning down stores. They're just shutting them down.
Not yet, but wait till October. Watch October.
That's what I wanted to get to, because it seems like as soon as people in large numbers started to recognize that the coronavirus was a political pandemic used as an authoritarian power grab, not an actual sickness, I think as more people start rejecting the mask, I think that they had an issue, as in, this isn't holding people under a spell. And it seemed like immediately after, we have the George Floyd incident and the subsequent riots.
Yep.
And I'm looking at who leads these riots, and it's all just communist front groups. And
that's exactly what it is. It's all communist front groups. That's precisely right. That's why we are seeing the rioting in the streets, because it's a communist revolution against America, to tear America down, because we were at war with the USSR. The Soviet Union was called USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The very word socialist republic should tell you that this is what's going on now. We have all these social networks. We have Netflix and all the different phone systems. They're all socialist networks. So that's what we are now becoming. The World Communist Party is coming to its final conclusion in America. And that's what America has a president who talks about. He wants to reestablish America and bring America back to, bring America back the way it was before. And this is why the Democrats do not want to bring America back. They've been trying for years to destroy this country. And this is what's going on today. They are still ranting and raving about, everyone just loved Obama. Obama used the Marxist-Leninist Soviet communist terms when he was running for president. And Hillary Clinton used the same communist terms when she was running for president. She used the same identical words, the communist words for revolution, when she was running for president. And so did Obama. Both of them used the communist expression of a change in society, a change you can believe in. Karl Marx, if you go back and read Marx, the Marxist philosophy, Karl Marx said, in order to change America to a communist system, you're going to need all of the useful idiots. You're going to need all the people of America to agree to be Nazis and communists. And so that's what they were referred to as useful idiots. And that's what we are today. Americans are useful idiots. We do what they're told. We do what we're told to do. We wear our masks. We stay away from each other. We stay home. And hopefully your country will go broke real soon. And when it goes broke, that means you go broke. and we hope you will die in the process, and your country will die in the process. And so we are useful idiots. We are going along with the communist line right now and accepting all of this nonsense that's going on with this plandemic. It's not a pandemic, it's a plandemic. P-L-A-N. It's been planned for a long time.
Yep.
And now is the time to overthrow the United States of America. So watch what is going to happen in October. I've told people this on other radio shows. It's going to happen in September and October. Watch what's going to happen in the last couple of weeks of September and the first 2 weeks in October. Watch what's going to happen to America in October. It's going to be something that's going to affect the whole earth. The entire world is going to be affected by this communist takeover in October. And it's going to last for a year and a half. That's something that most people cannot fathom. When the collapse and the world collapse happens in October, it's going to be for a year and a half. That means from this October coming to the next year of October, that's a year, and then 6 months more will be a year and a half. It will take for the world to finally settle down to a new world order of world communism, and the entire globe of the earth, flat or round, it doesn't matter, will become a new order of the world. A new communist system will be in us. And I think what's going to happen between October of this year and the October of next year, and then 6 months after that, I think ultimately when it's all over, we will have finally digitized the whole entire earth. All human creatures on the earth will be digitized. And that's because the communist powers of world communism do not need to, they don't need to go after you with a lawyer. They don't need to try and do anything to shut you down or to cause you problems. They can do that very easy by shutting you down, by going into a major bank and just shutting down your digital account. All they have to do is just erase your digital account number, and you are finally in a place where you cannot buy or sell in any market on the earth, because the whole entire world will be under a digital currency, a digital life. And that's what's going on now. All television is digital, radio is digital, everything is digital. Well, the whole world is going to be digital after the year and a half starting in this October, and go to the next October and add 6 months to that. The whole world will finally become digital. And that's why I think that that digital coin, I don't remember the name of it. What was the name of the digital?
Bitcoin.
What is it?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin. The entire earth, the whole round globe will be like Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, I think, is why Bitcoin exists, because somebody knew what was coming and they figured out how to do it in such a way that it can cause people to not buy or sell in any marketplace of the world if everybody is digitized. And I think that's what's coming.
It's interesting that you say this, because you mentioned this before, and since the last time we spoke, I'm looking at now, and it looks like Bitcoin is going to be something you can buy with a credit card at 7-Eleven now, at convenience stores. They're rolling it out for the masses, just like you described. And as a result of COVID, a number of businesses were trying to say no more cash. They're trying to take coins out of circulation because they can carry disease. So they're using the virus as a pretext to eliminate cash.
That's it. You're right. That's exactly what's happening. They're using the virus, the so-called virus. And keep in mind that the doctor that he has come up with this idea of a virus Do you remember the doctor's name?
No, I don't, but
He was very famous. He's a very famous doctor, but he is also a member of the Jesuit Society. A lot of people don't know that, but the doctor that came up with this coronavirus, and he's the one that broke the story and telling everybody they're going to die of some loathsome disease unless you put your mask on, stay home, stay away from other people, don't talk, don't do nothing, stay home, don't go to work, put your mask on, and we hope you die real soon,
see,
you and your country.
that doesn't
Well,
surprise me one bit. I had a feeling, because I really started looking into the virus theory after the lockdown, and I thought, this seems like a religious imposition, like puritanicalism, in the way that we're being told to socially distance, no more dating. They pretty much, I think, reinvented sin. And
yeah,
sin was used as a tool of oppression by the Roman Church. The concept of you're sinful, we need to save you. And now
that's
it's
right.
you're diseased, we need to vaccinate you.
Yep, you're right. And but when I was born and raised a Catholic. And at 8 years old, I was in the Catholic school, and they told us in the Catholic school that tomorrow night, you children are going to have your night at the church. It's going to be a child's night at church. And it's called what is that? What is that called? The, do you recall
Yeah,
what
I'm
they
thinking,
call it?
I know they have various like catechisms or various schools as you're growing up Catholic, and they have some overnight um, events, but no, I don't know the specific name.
Well, I'm talking about confirmation.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Confirmation.
confirmation. Well, we were told in the church by the nuns, incidentally, nun, N-U-N-N, is a Hebrew word for a fish. Jesus was a great fisherman because he was a great fisherman. Therefore, the women were called nuns. They were small fish.
Wow.
But we were told by the nuns that tomorrow night in church, the bishop will be here in town. The bishop is coming to officiate over the services, and you're going to be what's the word I'm looking for again?
Confirmed as a Catholic?
Yeah, confirmed as a Catholic. And afterwards, we were told, but after the service is over, the bishop may possibly, he may not, but he could possibly ask the children if there are any questions that they wanted answered. He would try and answer them. And we were told if the bishop asks you after the service is over, if you have any questions, remember you don't have any questions, period. You keep your mouth shut. You don't ask any questions of anybody. And so that next night, when the service was over, the bishop did ask. He was bishop from Mobile, Alabama, and he was in Florida, and I was living in Florida, and he came to Florida for the confirmation service. And after the service was over, he said, if any of you children have any questions, I'll try and answer them. I stood up so everyone could see who I am, because I have never been told by anybody, you can't ask any questions. My mother didn't tell me that. And so I am asking questions of the bishop. So I asked the bishop, I said, my father works with torches like a welder. And I said, and he lets me play with the torches once in a while to show me how dangerous they can be. So I know what a torch can do. When it's on fire, you can really hurt something. You can really hurt yourself or hurt other people with it. And I said, and so I asked the bishop, I said, if I had a torch and it was burning, if an angel appeared to me, because the Bible says angels appear to people, and if I have an angel appear to me, could I hit him with the torch? And he said, no, it wouldn't hurt the angel at all. And I said, why not? if I burned the angel with the torch, why wouldn't it hurt him? He said, because you can't burn an angel. You can't burn an angel. And I said, why not? And he said, because the angels are spirits, and spirits you can't even see, much less burn one. You can't burn a spirit because there's nothing there to burn. You need wood or paper or plastic or something to burn, but you can't burn a spirit or an angel because there's nothing there to burn.